Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Kimberly Simpson, and today I'm going to share with you some of my ballet and back to dance goals and outlines that I've created for myself for this year to get out of a state of feeling defeated and back into a sense of routine and a sense of feeling like I'm moving myself forward. Get comfy, and I have 10 tips to share, or 10 things that I did to help myself move forward. And this morning I made myself some turmeric tea or a latte, and this helps with inflammation. I stopped taking some of my vitamins that deal with inflammation. I'm finding that my tendinitis is slowly creeping back, so I want to fight that before it takes a strong hold on my body. That and the cold weather. And something else that I've started is drinking a lot of water, regardless of whether or not I'm exercising. I have been drinking water like a horse over the past 2 weeks, and I'll share why in another video, and it has something to do with the progressive ballet technique. And I just started my certification, and I just completed level 1. So very exciting news. So the first tip that I had for myself was working on my foot flexibility and strength at home. And to start out with this, I created a foot intensive for myself. And this is something that I started in the summer when I started this YouTube channel. And this was just to get my feet really strong enough for point work and for the next level that I was about to enter, which is a advanced pre-professional program. So I worked on some foot flexibility exercises, and I realized that I had about 15 of those written in one of my dance journals. In terms of the strength exercises, I incorporated some of my workout routine and my foot strength exercises that I already knew about. Kind of did some cross training, and I was really able to see some development in terms of my highest demi point, the strength that I had going all the way up from my toes to my hips and into my posture as well. So working on my feet has done miracles for me so far, and I'm pretty sure that the more that I do it, I will be able to train at my actual level. So next, tip 2 is working on those leg extensions. And legs are really important. Lines are really important in ballet, and what I've been learning, well, not just ballet, I find in hip hop as well as Latin ballroom and really any jazz, contemporary, any style, extensions and lines are really important because it shows the strength of a dancer's technique. So in terms of my leg extensions, I've actually been working on my hyper extension and my oversplit. So I started a 90-day challenge in October, and we are 2/3 of a way there to the end of the year, where I'm doing some progressive exercises to get myself into an oversplit. And I've never been able to do an oversplit before, actually, and hold that comfortably. So what I've been doing is I've been progressing with yoga blocks. So I started with 1 yoga block, now I'm on to 2. In terms of my hip flexor strength, one other thing that I noticed is that I no longer have hip flexor pain, and that is really important for me because sometimes after work, coming home, I want to sit at my laptop and do some other projects or work on editing videos, and sometimes I just can't find myself. I just can't find the strength in my hips to be able to sit for that long. And I think it's also a part of a lot of life changes and stress, and I'll get into that in another video. But working on my leg extensions have been a really big game changer in terms of how I see myself as a dancer and my progression and my potential as well. So moving past the point of potential and into alignment has been really important for me in this season. So in terms of leg extensions and my hyperextension, one thing that I've been finding in terms of my splits and my over splits is that sometimes my legs just want to go like this. And the stretch ends up being more so in my knees as opposed to my hip flexors to get that flat split from the hips. So once I'm able to finally do that, I'll be able to continue to hyperextend my knees, and that's when I'll have very beautiful grand jetés. So having hyperextended knees, very beautiful, on point, especially when doing things like chaîné turns or, kicks, battements, and développés. But I really want to have that oversplit so that I can do things more effortlessly. So next, point number 3, a back intensive at home. So back in the summer, I also started to implement more back exercises into my workout plan. And I found that by working my glute muscles as well as my lower back and finding a way to open up. So we have a lot of terms that we use in dance and that not a lot of people are very privy to, or it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. However, I've been learning, and I learned this in one of my stretch classes at the gym. Open up the lower back. And when I heard this, I thought, this is great. How do you open up your lower back? But I've been finding that you actually can. So what I've been doing is I've been laying in what's called a baby pose or a fetal pose, and I will just relax my bum or my glutes into my heels and do a little bit of a dip in my torso and just breathe. And then what I would also do is I would turn my head and place my cheek on one side of the floor and then switch and do it on the other side. And honestly, I find that I have like zero back pain, like none in my lower back. And I'm able to open up my center splits a lot more when my lower back is relaxed. So that has been really helpful for me. Okay, so number 4, having hot yoga and Pilates in order. So I have mostly been doing Pilates, and that is reformer Pilates, and that helps me to move with strength with a larger range of motion. And I would highly recommend reformer Pilates to dancers. If you can't make it to a class once a week, I was doing 2 times a week, but I'll need to scale back so that I can fit some other things into my routine. But I would recommend once a week or maybe once a month, go to some classes. So that has been a really big game changer for me. And in terms of hot yoga, I find that the heat will help you relax a little bit more, and it also helps you stretch beyond your regular comfort zone. However, I wouldn't recommend this, on a regular basis, just because you want to make sure that you're able to move in some of these positions without feeling like you need to be in a hot yoga class. And that's where I found myself getting stuck, because I found that I was always able to do, multiple things in a hot yoga class, but when it comes to being in my actual ballet classes or doing my exercises at home, that it took me much longer to get warmed up in order to sit in some of these poses and or move with a great range of motion. So those are just some tips in terms of implementing other things into training. So number 5, so reviewing classes, seeing which ones I liked and what I'm looking at doing. And unfortunately, I had to scale back on some of the dance classes that I was taking just because I was more so getting myself back into a groove of being in a constant state of movement. However, I found that I needed to train at a certain level in order to feel good about myself and to feel like I'm progressing and look at where we are in terms of my training and being able to be a part of some programs that not a lot of people can join. So I have a more solid plan for myself instead of going to, random classes wherever I can. I'm finding that having more structure is really helpful for me in this stage. And in terms of going back to taking drop-in classes, etc., there's definitely a time and place for that. So in terms of drop-in schedules, I would highly recommend taking those kinds of classes during the summer when the programs end, or when you have a long break, or if you're on vacation. I think implementing drop-in classes during that time is some of the best things that you could do for yourself. Okay, number 6. So a brief glance at quarter 3 and my goals and my strategy. That's something that was really important for me to do. In terms of New Year's resolutions, I usually plan about 10 New Year's resolutions, but this year I started a little bit late due to other reasons. You can watch some of my earlier videos, but I didn't start planning my year until about May. And during then, I wrote down all of the things that I wanted to do outside of dance, in my personal life, in terms of my language learning, and some other professional goals and other projects I was working on. And I went through that list and then I broke it down. I made 2 columns. So on the left was the goal, and then on the right I had all the other things that I needed in order to do in order to reach that goal in increments. So I did that, and I separated these things by quarters. And this is usually how I think about my year. And I'm not sure if it's because of my business minor background, but I usually look at my year in quarters, and that is also really helpful in terms of compartmentalizing things in my head so that I could move forward and not necessarily micromanage, but have some more control. I really want to be able to control the things that I can, because sometimes life will throw you so many different speed bumps, detours, distractions, and you really need to find a way to have something that grounds you. And for a lot of people and the community that I was a part of, in the arts community, that was really a great foundation for us for the rest of our lives, depending on, it didn't matter if we stayed in the arts or, created lucrative careers from it, or, went back and forth. We were always advised to have a backup plan. And I found myself spending more time on a backup plan as opposed to actually working on my art. And I don't really have regrets with that because I'm very well rounded. However, I'm taking a step back now and filling up my cup. And something that really propelled me into that was the pandemic and working for the Red Cross for a year and a half and really feeling burnout and deciding to work on things that I enjoy doing. So I saw a lot of stuff, I learned many things, and I experienced heartbreak. Burnout was real. I was on the ground on my face, a few times, in my recovery process from this burnout and dealing with, things like job loss or, relational things, grieving loved ones, loss of loved ones, and it was really hard for me. So it took me about 3 years to finally feel like I'm in a different place in terms of my moving forward with life. So right now, I am just focusing on things that I enjoy and being happy. So that is really important. And sometimes I'll get people saying, "Oh, why are you doing all of these things?" or dance. And I find that a lot of people, they actually don't have things that they enjoy doing outside of their work. I just find that it's really important to support yourself and don't give yourself the bare minimum, because other people will be there to give the bare minimum to you. So it's really important to love yourself and care for yourself and have things that you enjoy doing. And what you do doesn't define who you are. So there are definitely traits that I have that have led me to certain jobs that I've had previously and currently, and things that values that I have and skills that I've accumulated over the years, and just things that I enjoy doing professionally. Also having things that you do outside of your job when you come home from work. Otherwise, you're going to have burnout, and avoiding that is really important for me. So there are different things that I do to help me feel like I'm a well-rounded person. Things that I do to make sure that I'm keeping a sense of humor in my life and keeping myself intellectually stimulated. Goals that I have to move myself forward in terms of, financially. And that's another thing that I will talk about in another video, and that is finances as while working in the performing arts. And that is one thing that I know a lot of people struggle with and or have struggled with in the past. And I'll share some tips in terms of how you can support yourself and continue in the arts industry. Next is my Elegance and Winsome planners, and that has been a huge help with making sure that I'm able to reach some of my dance goals and my planning. And I just got a new one in the mail for 2026, and I've been sharing these in all of my videos. And this is a brand that I created back in 2022-23, and this was actually a series of planners that I created to help myself to get organized with beauty pageants and ballet. And then I decided, I think I'm going to put this out in the public. And this was also a tip that I got from a colleague in the pageant industry, and I found that I had something, I was onto something. So this person helped me to realize that and encouraged me to put this out on Amazon. So my Elegance and Winsome Planner, you can click the link below or in my profile and you'll see the Amazon storefront. Okay, so next I have decluttering my leotards, and it came down to not just what fits, but what fits me. I found that I had quite a few leotards in my closet that had some sentimental value and I was quite fond of, but it just didn't fit me anymore. And you know, these are things that I review on a regular basis. I always upgraded my wardrobe. First it started with beauty pageants, and then it went into my professional corporate kind of wardrobe, and implementing those two into my wardrobe was very new for me, in that I've never done a beauty pageant before leading up to all of this transformation stuff. But I always had my fitness outfits and my dance outfits, stretchy pants, and I found that I really needed to have like normal clothes as well. So decluttering was really helpful. Next, so ballet cue cards have been really helpful in terms of helping me to reach that other level of my knowledge in my craft. And this started out with creating a few binders and documents in terms of ballet terminology over the years and different books that I had. And then I created cue cards because that's how I study. And in terms of quizzing myself, that was really important. So on one side I would have the term, and then on the other side a description and or a picture. So that's something that I'm still working on because I have kind of set that to the side, and I'll be getting back to that shortly. And lastly, pre-ballet class routine. And this was honestly the biggest game changer for me. So for example, I would brain dump in a journal, and I've come up with a designated journal for ballet, and I would just jot down everything that was on my mind before class so that I can focus on the whatever we were learning or, you know, getting into character. These are my 10 tips in terms of reaching that next level in ballet and how I was able to transform not only my mindset, my life, and my identity and my role within the arts, and making sure that I'm able to reach my goals and give myself a whole new transformation before the end of this year. Follow some of these steps that I have laid out, that I have done, and that has worked for me. I'm pretty sure that you'll be a few steps closer to your goal.